All right, I think we should be live at this point. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to join. There is a number of people, quite a high number in the waiting room. I'll just give them some minutes to join as well and wait probably for another minute before kicking it off. I don't know where you're based. We have joiners to this webinar from all around the place. I'm sitting in the fynk HQ in Vienna right now, in what is probably our hottest room. We do have a lot of very hot rooms these past few days as the release was coming up, but this one specifically doesn't have AC. We tried what we could to fix my face, but you can see it. Of course, I'm also sweating out of anxiety and excitement, frankly. But I hope you don't mind. I'll try to keep a cool head and guide us all through this. Today is a really exciting day, not only for me, but for the entire fynk team, who think I can speak for all of us when I say we've been working tirelessly these past few days and weeks and months, even years in some cases, to be able to build what I'm going to show you today. And as I said, it's very cool for us to have you on this specific webinar. And of course, it's also going to be recorded so you can rewatch it later, share it with whoever you think might be a good fit. There is a comment section to the webinar. If you have any questions that come up during my presentation, you can post them in there, and I'll try to answer as many as I can at the end, and we'll certainly follow up when there are questions that need a follow-up answer from our side. Also, there's a bunch of people in the fynk office who have to be very quiet. We cannot fully guarantee you won't hear any of them, and maybe someone wants to join and talk a bit. Specifically, my co-founder Dominic is also on the call, and if there is a very, very hard technical question, he might join the webinar. The rest is just cheering from the sidelines, but everyone is very excited about today and about the things that we are going to show you. Now, without further ado, let's talk about what we built and what I'm going to show you today. So today, I'll show you something that we've actually learned on our own. It's based on things we have ourselves witnessed when we started working with AI more and more inside and outside the team. And in general, this though is not like me giving you that classic AI pep talk. We all by now know that AI is changing the world and it's changing the way we work. The problem is that the people in this room, in this webinar specifically, are operators. You all have operational challenges that you need to solve. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on that call. And I've seen this myself. It's not as easy as it sounds. Instead of just like when you personally use GPT, get your entire team to work with it efficiently and give it the tools that people need so that they can work with AI in their normal day-to-day workflow. And this is exactly what we built. We're going to show you, or I'm going to show you a bunch of practical use cases that you can use using the tool that we released today, and we've already shipped to production by now as a small teaser. Basically, what we wanted is to reduce friction, because what is the biggest pain of an operator? I'm going to change to my screen sharing real quick. So it's what I call the operator dilemma. So in the old days, you would buy a software as a company, and there would be expert users or champions, as we would like to call them internally, that really had the time and also, it was their main task to understand and fix the problem and to set up the software to do so. So software as a service does need its place in this world for the expert users on an everyday basis that have to configure the workflows. But one thing that is particular about documents, and that's the stuff that we're dealing with mostly documents, contracts, agreements, whatever you'd like to call them. Let's just call them business documents for now. The problem with those is that your entire team needs to be able to work with them. And for some people, that only happens once or twice a week, a month, maybe even once or twice a quarter. But you still want everyone to work with that. I've just been told that the screen sharing is not yet on, but I'll change that. Now you should see what underlines what I just said. So the operator dilemma. So what do you want to do as an operator is you want to get as many people involved as possible when it comes to managing business documents. This could be sales, this could be HR, this could be any department. And this has been super hard to do because not everyone is willing to learn to use a new piece of software every single week. But with AI, we suddenly get the chance to fix that because AI introduced an interface that now everyone knows. And that's this prompt box that we are all so, well, happy about since we got to know GPT in our personal lives. But the question now is not what can AI do anymore, but how can I get my people and my team to use it? And this is the exact reason why we built the fynk Assistant. fynk Assistant is the most capable business document assistant on the market today because instead of just focusing on one single set of documents or document, it actually has access to your entire repository. It can switch between contexts. It stays constantly aware of what you're doing, and it can handle virtually any task and any question that you're giving it to work with. And this basically helps you orchestrate your entire workflow across your company in a more easy and efficient and accessible way. I'm going to show you specific examples of how this can be done in a few seconds, but I just would like to point out that this is not something that I'm just showcasing as a prototype. It's something that is already available on your account. So fynk Assistant has been launched in the early morning today. It's live currently on every single account, every single plan, including any free user plans that are active on fynk. The only exception is people who have asked us follow-on questions after we announced that we'd been working with Mistral as a sub-processor. For those, the feature is still on hold until we've resolved all the questions, but I'm confident we will in the upcoming hours. So what do you need to be doing in order to be able to work with documents and contracts efficiently? You need to make sure that they stay safe and that they stay accessible and permitted only for the people that can access or should be able to access them. This is why fynk Assistant acts on your own permissions. That means that it inherits everything that you can do from inside fynk and understands who as a user you are and what you are allowed to do and what not. And if you are not allowed to do something, it can also point you to the right direction and to the person that you should talk to. Also, we know as most of our current customers are still coming from the EU, compliance is an issue. fynk is leveraging a multitude of different AI models and providers, but the entire setup is strictly contained to inside the EU. And we've made sure that every single step of it meets all the standards required so that we can keep our ISO certification and that we can stay GDPR compliant. And what's most important is that the data stays yours. So we really protected every single step of the way so that you can be sure that when you work with your repository in fynk using the fynk Assistant, that it's going to be safe. One small teaser before I directly jump into the demo is that we are also going to be releasing an MCP. The MCP gives you the chance to connect fynk with the same capability to every company tool that you might already use, like Claude, for example. The one disclaimer I want to give is that we don't have control over your Claude setup. So if your Claude setup is good and correct, then you could make it ISO and GDPR compliant, but that's outside of our scope. The fynk technology, when you connect it to Claude that you use, is still the same level of security and also geographically based in the same place. We're going to release this MCP next week, and we're going to follow up with some more information on that. I'm just pointing it out because fynk Assistant is essentially based on the same MCP. So the same functionality that I'm going to show you now, you'll also have access to when you use the MCP from next week. And then, just a small teaser, one thing that we're also working on very hard right now is extensions to what I'm about to show you. We will be releasing new features when it comes to fynk Assistant every single week from now on. And the most important ones are all circled around automatically editing, redlining, and reviewing contracts or counterparty proposals in your documents. And we're going to ship this not in a year from now, but in the upcoming days, weeks, and months. So stay tuned for that as well. And now that I've been speaking for a long time, why don't I just show you what fynk Assistant is capable of in a few very specific use cases. So you should at this point be able to see fynk inside the webinar in my screen sharing. And this is the fynk AI interface in full screen mode. I just kept the chat history open because I wanted to point out that you, of course, can have multiple conversations. And throughout the conversation, you can also move inside fynk, and the conversation will stay aware of the context and what you are doing. For now, just to make it a bit clearer and more clean, I'm basically, toggling this back out. So the first use case is one that I came up with myself, and that's why I'm also showing it first. I, as a founder, have to constantly send out updates to our investors, and these updates usually contain a bunch of information that's quite like it's the same KPIs, but they evolve over time naturally. And one thing that I at some point wanted to do is use AI to compare all of the updates that I send out. With fynk Assistant, that's actually pretty easy because I can just say, compare my investor update documents in 2026 and tell me what changed between the different periods. Now, when I hit enter, Assistant starts working and figures out a way to make that possible. It's currently searching through my documents for all the investor updates. And then it's going to read every single document with its content and propose me a table of specific information related to these documents. But of course, you can never know, right? What the initial information is that it's going to come up with because I didn't clarify what exactly I want to compare. Still, it came up with what I would call the most critical information. So what's the revenue we added? What's the total ARR? And what are the main changes in the business? But I could also say, okay, well, I want to drill down on this a bit. So please compare just the financial performance across these updates. Look at MRR, churn, the growth, ARR, customer numbers, and such. And when I give it this follow-on task, it's going to refine its answer so that it compares the actual KPIs that I want to see. One thing worth pointing out here is that this is all happening in real time and using the actual thing. So I'm not showing you a pre-recorded video. This is the actual AI that you also have access to working in real time. And also worth pointing out is that, as I said, I can leave this place or I can switch the view. So for example, I see, okay, there has been a total ARR of 3.56 million in January 26. Where is that set? I can just switch the context, see the document in the background. The chat stays open on the side and it's still working on the same things. And of course, I can also go back to the full page view and switch to another document from there. Now, as you've seen in the full page view, now I got the table that I wanted. It shows me the different periods and it shows me the different KPIs included with all the references across all the documents that it could retrieve. So this is one use case that is really important for me as a founder and probably also for investors on the call because it lets you quickly compare what's in 2, 3, or, well, a random number of documents that you have to work with. Let's talk about the second use case that we've prepared for today. And I'm gonna start a new chat for this. In case you want to get creative yourself, you can, but also we offer some nice little predefined options so you can start exploring. The next one that I want to point out is also a problem that I had. It's when you have a bunch of employment contracts and you want to alter or like add something to these, but you don't want to do every single document manually on your own. So the prompt I'm going to give it is create 3 addenda using my addendum template for the following employment contracts. And of course, as all the data in the fynk Academy account, this is just demo data. So we are not talking real people here. So I'm going to pick the employment contract of Soren. I'm going to pick the one of Helonsky, and I'm going to pick the one of Ferguson. For these three, I would like to create addenda. So what fynk is going to do now, it's going to find the template that I mentioned for when I want to make a change to an employment contract, which it already found. And then it's going to look at what do I need in order to make this work. And some of the things that it might need is who is the person supposed to sign this? Because it might not be even like set on the template, of course, because it's one template for all my employees. What is the change that I would like to make? This specific template is about increasing salaries. So it will need the new salary. And what I'm incredibly proud of that we managed doing is it can ask you for these data points. So now it's going to ask me, what's the new annual salary for Richard Soren? And the next question would be Helonsky, Ferguson, and then it would ask me if I want to create these three addenda right now. But the problem is I don't know what is the new annual salary. So I could just skip this for now and say, could you retrieve the base salary from the employment contracts and ask me again for each individual person? Propose a 10% increase from the baseline salary. Now it's going to look up the old salary and just propose a 10% increased salary for every single person and hopefully help me fill out these documents so that I can send them for signing. Let's wait for it to finish. Yes, so I have the base salary and I have the 10% increased proposed annual salary. And now I can say, looks good. Insert these into the addenda. Now it knows what the values are that it needs to fill out. And it's going to start working on this. And of course, what we have activated here, I also should point that out, is this human in the loop concept. So whenever it's doing something, it's going to ask me for my confirmation like it did previously. Now, when I explicitly tell it to do something, it will skip that step. But we've made it very strict so that for the first phase, you can be assured that it won't like jump to conclusions before you step in and confirm the most critical actions on its part. And of course, there is maybe going to be at one point something we would like to call YOLO mode that you can turn on that would let it auto act on itself and upon itself. But we'll wait for your feedback before we do such a thing. And of course, this will be a toggle that you can configure for your account and maybe sometimes even for specific cases. So it has created 3 addenda. I can show you one of these documents. So I now know, okay, this is the employee, these are the changes, this is the new salary. The only thing that's missing is that it's not yet sent for signature. So let's go back to the full page view and say, let's move them to signature one by one. Now, it will probably figure out that either it already knows who the signatory should be or it has to ask me. Looks good. I think it figured out the signatory for each document. So that would only have been one question then. And it's moving the documents to signing, which means that the persons who are supposed to receive this these addenda will get their signature reminder and also, well, of course, their signature notification in their inboxes. If anything that I've been showing right now has already triggered questions, please feel free to leave any question in the chat so that we can deal with it after I finish the 3rd use case. I know this is a bunch of functionality that I'm showing that's quite new. So happy to answer everything that I can directly after this. So what we see now is that all the 3 documents, that was the one I showed before, are already in signing. Since this is a special case, a pre-signed document, which has my signature even before it's filled, if we only change the fields that are allowed to be changed. So this has been going directly to my employee, Richard, to be signed. Um, all right, let's go back 1 second and talk about the third use case. The third use case is something that's very it's comfortable for anyone who has to deal with the analysis of a large set of contracts on a regular basis. So fynk has what we call dashboards, where you can set a specific report, and this will graphically, visually, and numerically display what happened to a certain set of contracts, what the statistics are, extracting certain KPIs and such. Now, it used to be kind of complex to figure out how to configure this, and it would take some time to get used to the UI. But with fynk Assistant, now you can actually automatically create dashboards and have them set up for a certain type of contract. So what I'm going to enter here is how many NDAs do I have in my account, how many are signed, and how many are in review, just to check on the status of my NDAs in my repository. And quick teaser from that, I'm going to go create a dashboard that shows me the important details about these contracts and that I then can revisit frequently to see what the development is on this set of documents. So currently, you can also see it has been looking up documents. It's found the NDAs. It's also looked up the tags that I have just to be sure that it doesn't leave anything out, because an NDA might be tagged an NDA, but not contain the information that it's an NDA by document type. So we know we have 20 in the account, 5 are done, and 7 are in review, as I asked. And now let's just go ahead and say, create a dashboard for all my NDA documents. Make sure you create widgets for the following metadata: industry, contract jurisdiction, data sensitivity level, and so on and so on. Now, when I hit submit, fynk will automatically go and create a dashboard that contains the most important widget if I want to constantly reevaluate and reassess my documents. It might even redirect me there automatically. We'll see in a second. If not, we're just going to go there ourselves. But one thing that it didn't know is what should it call the dashboard. So I'll call it the Miracle NDA dashboard. There's always time for emojis. And also, and that's also, of course, interesting because it shows that it also cares about permissions a lot. Who should be able to see that? So the person, let's say it's only for me at this point, because of course I want to check what is going on in there before I share it with my colleagues. So with all that information, it can now start creating the dashboard, which it did. Now it's going to navigate to the dashboard. And now, of course, the widgets are still missing. Now, one thing that it needs to be still doing is configure these widgets based on my specifications, which it does at this point. Now it's updating the dashboard. And the widgets are here. So now I can see all my documents by stage. I can see a calendar that shows me which NDAs I need to take care of in which month. The data sensitivity level has been classified, the hosting location, the contract jurisdiction, the industry, and all the ones where I am an involved user. This is actually pretty cool because now everyone, no matter how expert they are in using fynk, can set up something like this. So this concludes the third use case. And just to show you how this can be used, I can, of course, at any time start a new chat. As I said, I can always go back and reiterate over things that I've been doing. For example, let's say I want to go back and check this investor update. This will all stay up to date. And at any point in time, I will be able to access all of these conversations going forward, which also, of course, lets me jump to the places where it's found everything. I think this is an incredible step away from when you still had to learn software in the direction of how can I get my entire team to embrace this? Because if I'm a non-expert user and I need to get something done, this is where I go and ask. I just go to fynk AI and tell it what I want to achieve. And the cool thing is, this is only the tip of the iceberg. As I said, we are adding more and more features every single day from now on, hopefully using your feedback that you're going to give us, hopefully answering some of the questions that you are going to pose regarding what I just showed. But to sum up, we're just generally and genuinely excited by this because it's been something that's been in the back of our head for a long time. And it used to be incredibly, and it was incredibly hard to build. But from now on, it's just pure fun for us, for you, and hopefully it's going to also make business documents fun and more lovable again in the future. Let me just quickly think, because I hardly read any of my notes. Did I forget something? I don't believe I did. Now, the question at this point is, do we have any questions in the chat? Let me quickly check.
So,
oh, hi, Dominic. That's my co-founder, Dominic. And he certainly found at least one specific question that he'd like to answer. For example, now he's gone again. So, but I also found one. If you want to jump in, Dominic, feel free to do so. If not, I'm just going to answer one. Basically, one question was, is there a token limit to be used? So currently, as I said, we're launching the fynk Assistant for every account, including the free users. And there is somewhat of a fair use principle for the time being as we collect your feedback. That doesn't mean that we collect your data. We just want you to give us feedback manually. If that's possible in the AI world, I would really appreciate it because it helps us build the best product. We will start charging not per token, but per outcome. So you won't be charged for stuff where you don't achieve your goals, but you will be charged when the AI completes tasks for you and helps you achieve actual results. Depending on which tier you're on, you have a set of base credits, what we call them, and beyond that, you'll be able to buy extension credits as you see fit. We're going to follow up in a timely manner with all the information regarding that, but expect this to be starting from the end of Q3, beginning of Q4, so around the end of September. So the next question, unless Dominic wants to join. No?
yes. So one other question was, what is MCP? So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's basically a way how you can integrate your fynk contract database and all the capabilities you just saw into other AI workflows with your local AI provider with the local AI provider of your choice. So you can then access fynk where ChatGPT or where Claude or Claude Code. So it's basically a protocol or something like an API for large language models, an API for AIs, so to say.
Yeah. What we think is the future for so many companies is that they're gonna have, for non-expert users, one kind of AI wrapper for their organization. And this AI wrapper needs to be able to connect to expert tools like fynk that offer, let's say, secure storage, signature, and such. So when that is happening, you need a way to connect it, and the way the connection happens is called MCP. So
then there is another question. What are the upcoming features? Maybe I can give
sure.
a brief preview of what we are developing right now. So you see it here on my local machine. So this is what we are currently working on. So we want to give the fynk Assistant also the power to actually work with document contents. So this starts with actually, so this, as I mentioned, is just on a local machine. So you can't try that out on production right now, but you can see I can start a chat by, for example, create a new template NDA containing a common NDA between two parties. And the assistant would then create a template just for me, containing clauses, typical NDA clauses, and also inserting signature blocks and references and dynamic fields directly into the content. So what we saw up until now is that a lot of people find it hard to actually place those signature blocks and those dynamic fields into the editor and make a very sound document. It usually takes a couple of minutes. But with this AI assistant, you can basically do it with just one sentence, and it will configure a template for you. And this also should then be working like that you have, for example, ask the AI to, I will show you here, change paragraph 7 to be more strict. And it would then, or adding a joke to, let's add a joke to the contract at the end. And you would then, of course, always stay in control. So the difficulty here is not that the AI can change something in the document. The difficulty here is that the human always stays in the loop, because with contract and business documents, you don't want to lose control. And this way, we basically implement a human in the loop concept here, where you could ask the AI to do some changes, and you would then see those changes, and you could accept or reject them individually. So of course, this is not finished yet. This is just a prototype, but some things that are going to come in the next weeks.
Thank you, Dominic. I wasn't even aware that you would show this prototype. It's pretty cool. I mean, I've seen parts of it, of course. Nice that you can now see it as well. There was another question that I care a lot about, and that is where does your data go, and how secure is the AI, or are the AI services? So generally speaking, fynk for most of the AI operations uses the Azure Cloud. Azure services provided by Microsoft, hosted in European locations, where we do have contractual guarantees that anything we do doesn't leave the EU. And we also have, of course, elevated security and elevated permission, or like we have an entire team working on making sure your data doesn't leave to any place it's not supposed to leave to, of course. If you need specific information, I would also recommend that you ask my colleagues by writing an email, a short message to DPO, Data Protection Officer at fynk.com. We also announced 2 weeks ago that we were going to work with Mistral. In the case of Mistral, we work with their OCR service. So we use that to read stuff from documents that you upload to the chat. We might want to use that for other documents that are already in fynk going forward as well. But essentially, apart from it not being hosted on Azure, but we do have data stored with Mistral in the EU, the same set of rules apply. So we have zero data retention, and we are making sure the data doesn't leave to any third country. That's the most common question that I get. But of course, happy to clarify on all the questions that follow up when you write it to DPO at fynk.com. So there is one more. How do I make sure, or how do we make sure that our team has no access to our contracts data? That's part of the ISO processes that we have in place. Team members cannot access your account if they do so because they are in support and specifically requested to do so by you. This will be logged, and it always needs to be approved. But this cannot happen without you confirming it. Is there... Wait, let me just check. Does the AI rely on the metadata? If so, if the metadata for a contract is entered incorrectly or read incorrectly, is the underlying data incorrect? So the AI is always going to trust metadata that you as a user have confirmed. When you run an AI analysis, there is two options currently in fynk. One is you confirm what the AI finds. One is you say you trust the AI and auto confirm. The AI to be able to work more efficiently, quicker, and at a lower cost, obviously, but also most importantly, more reliably because it's more specific information, is always going to prefer the metadata if it has it. If it doesn't have a set of metadata, it's going to look for that metadata. And of course, you would always have to confirm all of that. I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, of course, the support team is also happy to help. So this means, that's the next question. So this means from now on, we would be able to discuss customer sent PDF documents in our team, in our fynk teams. I don't know if I understand the question correctly. I think that was always possible. But of course, yeah, I'm not even sure if I understand the question correctly, because of course in your team you can always discuss the contracts. If you are talking about, well, maybe you can clarify. Does this mean that our contracts are always accessible to your AI? Well, I mean, it's not like they were always accessible. You have to tell it. What we do with the contract is that when you upload a contract and it's, for example, a scan, we run an OCR parser over it so that we get the textual content so that you can also search. But the AI is not just roaming around and doing stuff on the contracts on its own. Also, I mean, if you really want to ensure the AI is not turned on, you can ask us to turn it off. But I wouldn't recommend it because literally AI is going to be your biggest time saver and help you focus on stuff that matters most, where you are needed as an expert. So for all the simple tasks or all the very repetitive tasks, AI can be a preference at that point. The way we implemented it, I recommend you try it out and see for yourself. If you then have the feeling it doesn't work for you or you don't want it, let us know, because this is exactly the feedback that we would like to hear from you so that we can improve. Does this solution include document management software that tracks deadlines and reminds me when contracts are about to expire or when prices need to be renegotiated? Yes, that's exactly what it does. So that fynk has always been able to do that. It's just more accessible now. So you can extract the deadlines. You can extract when the points in time when you need to follow up on a document, and you can create the reminders for that. And fynk will then automatically remind you. So that's exactly what it's supposed to be used for, and it's now more accessible using the app assistant. Is there a single repository for contract data and fynk AI output? I also am not 100% sure I understand the question, but maybe Dominic does because he turned on his camera.
No. So I wanted to talk about another question. So
okay, well, jump in with that, and I'll think about that one.
Yeah, okay. So how do you ensure that your team has no access to our contract data? So this is something we actually spent a lot of time thinking about, and it was quite some work to implement rules, because this is also one of the things that you really need to think about when you want to get ISO compliant, ISO 27001. So when you want to get compliant, you really need to think about who is allowed to see what, and who is allowed to has, for example, database access, and who is allowed to see customer data. And even if those short, so always reduce the amount of people who have access to certain data. So we follow that principle. There's only like very few people that have access, and those people that have access, their access is transparently monitored and logged. So for example, if a customer has some problem or some problem with fynk, and one of our customer success team members needs to help him, each interaction with the data in the customer's account is tracked on a dedicated table, and you can afterwards exactly see which of our employees was able or viewed which document of yours. And they only are allowed to view those if there is a specific customer inquiring help, for example. So this is a very important part for us. And it was also something that was quite a lot of work to get done right. And we spent most of that. Actually, yeah, we started spending really a lot of that time last year when we got the ISO certification. Yeah. And regarding the AI, maybe just one more word. The AI is completely isolated, and when you ask the AI a question, it always acts on your behalf. So it basically gets the same rights as the user has. So it's basically technically impossible that a user gets an answer from the AI which he would not be able to get without the AI. So this is completely isolated. The AI gets exactly the same rights and permissions and viewing access as the user who is actually writing the prompt or querying the Think Assistant.
Thank you, Dominic. In the meantime, I thought about one other question, and that was if there is a single repository. So if I interpret this correctly, so your repository is always per organization. You can, however, have multiple organizations tied to the same Fynk user account. So if you're managing multiple companies, that would be possible. And so for you as a business, it's stored in a single place, but it's not like we're distributing that to other companies and such. If you have specific technical questions regarding the setup, I recommend you write to support@fynk.com, or if it's data security related, then you could also write to dpo at fynk.com. Then I've also just seen a question that if we have any bigger customers with higher security requirements, yes, that's the case. We do have those. I would also recommend asking or sending a short message to support@fynk.com so that you get the answer you're probably looking for. Also, there are a bunch of customer case studies online on our website that you can check out. Some of those are also by slightly bigger customers. In terms of the other question that said, how many customers currently use Fynk and what's the typical company size? So we do have companies in the range of 1 employee to several thousand, over 10,000 employees. Felix raised his hand also, who is also on our team, who probably has something to say about this. But we don't think of companies as a size construct. We see that both small and slightly bigger and enterprise companies have they either have a fast moving teams or not. In an enterprise, there might be both, right? There might be one singular team that's super fast moving. For this team, Fynk might also be the perfect fit. In generally, when we speak about Fynk, we say Fynk is tailored for smaller teams and fast moving teams. So not to exclude enterprise, but of course, sometimes enterprises have different requirements, and we like to think of Fynk as a tool for small and fast moving teams. If that includes your enterprise, you're also happy, of course, to try it out. Then there has been the question of if charging is based per outcome, the definition of outcome. So the definition of outcome, it exists internally. It's, for example, when you run an extraction of a new set of metadata across hundreds or thousands of documents, that would, of course, also mean that there is a cost for us on our end. We're going to share, as I said, as soon and in a timely manner, as soon as possible, in a timely manner, all the information on the specifics of how we will charge these outcomes. For us, it was important that, contrary to some other tools with Fynk, you are not charged for cases where you don't achieve what you wanted to achieve. So that's the origin of the outcome-based pricing. But as I said, we're going to share more information that's more specific than what I tell you right now as soon as it's fully available. There is another question. Can you later go to AI chats and expand it? If you need, let's say, from your first example, you need to create a one-page investor update, would you need to restart the chat again? How would you find this chat under many other chats? So the best practice example for that is that you can reference chats by their title using and then the chat name. That's actually not live yet, but we also thought about how you could reference a previous chat. You don't always need to start a new conversation, but with the context window of AIs, it's advisable if the task is really different from what you have been doing before to start a new conversation, just so that you start off with a clean slate and a blank sheet of paper, if you want to use the analogy. I hope that answers the question. And of course, you can always go back to your previous conversations and continue them. That's also possible if it's related to the original context. The question is, can we create a new metadata with AI now? I think by now it should be live. Dominic, is it live?
No, you can't create yet, but it's
How
on
many
our list.
hours?
Yeah, it's on our list. But just follow up for the last question. Can you show it now? I think it was related to what you were saying now. It's basically
Yeah, going back to previous conversation.
yes.
Yeah, sure. Wait, let me activate this again. So, which one is the right one? Here we go.
So you don't need to restart the conversation because there was a question about that. You can always go back and restart and continue talking with your old conversations.
Yeah,
So you
so
don't
I
need to
can,
start a new one
yeah,
if
so
you want to.
yeah. If let's say, wait, let me just try something real quick. Maybe that will answer the question. Let's just all pretend that when I download this as a PDF, that it's a new investor update. And just to make sure, these are, of course, demo documents. So I can also say I have a new investor update. How is the ARR in that compared to what was the last one? June. It's now going to tell me likely that this is lower because it's from January and I just downloaded it. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. But yes, of course, you can compare and you can also, well, put new context inside the window. Yeah. So looks good. It also still works, if that answers the question. I I used the first chat right now, so I think this is exactly the question I just answered. Yeah. Can the AI access my archives? Archive documents, Dominic, please correct me if I'm wrong. Archive documents cannot be used in the chats as it stands.
Yes, it's archive documents are not accessible yet for the AI.
If you mean archived as in no longer an active document, if you put it into the archive, it's gone from the context. Yeah. Okay. So I got the question right. So how much detail can be set in the role and permission system? Dominic, would you like to elaborate on this or should I?
Yeah, I mean, I can maybe start and you jump in if you have some additional
Yeah,
ideas on that.
sure.
So we currently have around 4 or 5 roles. So there is the account owner basically that is allowed to see everything. And he's also allowed to modify the settings of the account. Then there is the admin, which is allowed to configure the account, but is not allowed to see everything. So especially in some larger companies, you have the requirement that the administrator cannot see everything, but it's allowed to actually change things. So this is the administrator role for. And then we have the editor, which is allowed to modify templates and then of course also modify documents, the actual legal context basically. and the content of the documents. And then we have the manager who is just allowed to basically work with templates, but not allowed to actually change the content on his own. And then we have the limited manager as well, who has even fewer rights. So we have a very granular permission system. Regarding roles, we also have the teams. So we have another entity, we call it teams, where you could then set also allow specific people to work on specific documents, but not to work on other documents. So for example, you could create an HR team, which is there and it can just access and modify HR documents, or you could create a finance team, which has just access on the finance documents. And regarding the roles and access, we also have support for SSIM and SAML, so you can also implement single sign-on and also user management remotely with, for example, Google or Microsoft 365, so that all your employees get the users automatically created at fynk.
All right,
And
there is one.
On the document itself, we also have specific roles. So you could invite external collaborators and give them certain permissions as well.
Thank you, Dominic. I don't think I do have anything to add to that. If you have follow-on questions regarding any of those things, of course, you can always, again, ask support at fynk.com, DPO at fynk.com. And also everything that's in the chat will also be collected by us in the form of feedback that you've been giving. For example, the usage of archived documents in the AI chat. We'll take a look at this. One thing that I just saw in the questions, and that's also interesting, is can the assistant compare customer contracts with our company's terms and conditions and highlight any differences? Yes, it can. Give it a try. I would show you, but the thing is, I just looked it up really quickly, and I currently have any policies that are not that are demo policies, so I can't share our internal ones. All right. Sometimes I get updates to a contract and I just store these in my archive. So it would be quite handy if same question with the archive. We're gonna take a look. I can't make any promises, but we'll give an update on that, I would assume. I'm not sure if you are a customer or not. If not, let support know that it's you, or they have already realized. Usually there is a way to find a solution. Does it work with other languages like Spanish? Yes, the AI does. fynk is only available in English and German for the time being, with English being the default. But the AI speaks many languages, and the contracts can also be read in a multitude of languages. That has already been answered. Okay. Oh, you're a customer. Happy to hear it. Good. I think we've answered everything for the time being. Well, wait. So currently there will be no additional fee for this feature, only from the end of September, depending on outcome. That is correct. Of course, there is going to be some limits to free accounts, just so that we prevent running into, let's say, denial of service or cost attacks. If you run into any issues, also always ask support at fynk.com for help. These are the most lovely guys on the planet, and they are always happy to help. You can also ask the assistant if it's a technical matter, because the assistant actually has access to fynk's knowledge base and can answer product-related questions. And please make sure that you read up on the newsletters that we send out, because they will contain information on a day-by-day or week by week basis regarding what we have released, what we've been made possible. Because as I mentioned, from now on, we're going to be staying in full release mode and be pushing additions and extensions to the AI assistant every single day. Also, in case you're interested in Fynk's MCP, make sure to let us know if you want to be added to the waitlist, to the beta testers, maybe even. That really depends on the case you want to use it for. And stay tuned for updates on that. I essentially think that we are at probably what is the most exciting point as in my career as a product person, because we finally get to make users that don't have the time and don't touch the product, the software product so often, to get them to be able to still use it. Because for as long as I can remember, I have seen people struggle with documents, document editing, and getting them signed, especially when it's not what they do on a day-to-day basis. And that is also what holds back so many of the people in this call, the operators, you as I call them, right? Because your goal essentially is to make your company more efficient and to help people work and adopt it. We're trying to give you the tools. We are working with you to build the tools to do that. So, as I said, I can be only but excited, and I see it in the faces of the teams. They are as well. If there is no further questions, and I don't think there is, if there is any, let me know. Hit us up on email or on any kind of channel that you could use. Thank you so much for joining. We'll publish the video of the webinar. We'll follow up with more information regarding all of the questions that I maybe only partially answered. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. Okay, well, we have 1 minute for an answer. Rolf Amberg raised their hand. I'm not sure if I can. Rolf, I'm not I'm not a Think Power user. But if it's only meant to be a goodbye, then I'm going to say goodbye. Otherwise, you'll know how to contact us anyway. Thank you so much for joining in. See you soon. I have a lovely and hot summer evening, depending on where you are. We in Vienna for sure do have one. And I'll hope to see you again very soon and be able to show you more stuff very, very soon. Thanks for joining in and taking the time. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you using Think. Goodbye.